Sarah Martinez had always been the person others overlooked. Standing barely 5 feet 3 inches tall with her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, she moved through the corridors of Fort Bragg's Special Operations Command with the quiet efficiency of someone who had learned early that being invisible was often an advantage. Her tactical vest hung loose on her small frame, and, to most observers, she looked like exactly what her paperwork said she was: communications support. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training compound as Sarah adjusted her headset and checked the radio frequencies one final time. Around her, the elite operators of Delta Force prepared for what would be their most challenging simulation yet. These were men who had earned their reputation in the deadliest corners of the world, warriors whose names were whispered in both reverence and fear. To them, Sarah was simply part of the background, another piece of equipment necessary for their mission but hardly worth noticing. Captain Jake Morrison, the team leader, barely glanced in her direction as he reviewed the mission parameters. His weathered face bore the scars of countless operations, and his reputation as one of the Army's finest operators preceded him wherever he went. The simulation they were about to undertake was designed to test every aspect of their capabilities, from tactical movement to crisis decision-making under extreme pressure. Sarah had been assigned to this unit 6 months ago, fresh from what everyone assumed was basic communications training. Her file was remarkably thin, listing only the standard qualifications expected of support personnel. She never corrected anyone's assumptions, never mentioned her background, never drew attention to herself. Instead, she listened, learned, and waited. The other support staff treated her with the casual friendliness reserved for someone they considered harmless. Tech Sergeant Williams, responsible for equipment maintenance, often made jokes about how quiet she was. "You sure you're not mute, Martinez?" he would tease, not unkindly. Sarah would smile and continue with her work, checking communication links and ensuring that the complex web of technology that kept the team connected remained functional. What none of them knew was that Sarah's silence had been carefully cultivated over years of training that made their own preparation look elementary. She had learned to observe without being observed, to blend into any environment so completely that people forgot she was there. It was a skill that had kept her alive in places these operators had never heard of, on missions that officially never happened. The simulation was set to begin at dawn, and, as the team gathered for final briefings, Sarah took her usual position at the communication station. The exercise would pit the Delta Force team against a sophisticated enemy force equipped with advanced technology and unpredictable tactics. Intelligence suggested that the opposing force had capabilities that would challenge even the most elite units. As the briefing progressed, Sarah noted details that others missed. The way the intelligence officer's eyes flickered when discussing certain tactical positions. The slight hesitation in the mission commander's voice when outlining the rules of engagement. The unusual specifications for communication protocols that seemed unnecessarily complex for a standard training exercise. Morrison and his team were focused on the obvious challenges: room clearing, hostage rescue scenarios, and coordinated assault tactics. They discussed their approach with the confidence of professionals who had executed similar operations countless times in real combat situations. Their planning was thorough, their preparation meticulous, but Sarah could see the gaps they were missing. The opposing force wasn't just another training unit. The equipment manifest she had quietly reviewed showed gear that was far beyond standard issue. Night vision systems that could penetrate most camouflage, communication intercept capabilities that could compromise traditional radio protocols, and mobility assets that would allow rapid repositioning across the training area. Sarah made subtle adjustments to her equipment, modifications that would be invisible to casual observation but could prove crucial when the exercise began. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across devices that looked standard but incorporated capabilities that weren't listed in any manual. She double-checked encryption protocols and verified backup communication channels that existed in parallel to the primary systems. The team's medic, Corporal Davis, noticed her careful preparation. "You really take this stuff seriously, don't you?" he commented, not entirely approvingly. In his experience, support personnel who tried too hard often became liabilities when things went wrong. Sarah simply nodded and continued her work. As the hour approached, the nervous energy of pre-mission preparation filled the air. Even seasoned operators felt the familiar tightening in their stomachs before significant operations, whether real or simulated. Equipment was checked and rechecked, weapons were cleaned and loaded with simulation ammunition, and each man reviewed his specific responsibilities one final time. Morrison gathered his team around the tactical map spread across a folding table. The training area covered several square miles of varied terrain, from dense forest to open fields to a mock urban environment complete with multi-story buildings. The objective was complex: penetrate enemy defenses, locate and extract 3 high-value targets, and exfiltrate without compromising mission security. Remember, Morrison emphasized, his voice carrying the authority of experience, this isn't just about completing the mission. We're being evaluated on every aspect of our performance. Speed, stealth, adaptability, and teamwork all matter. The opposing force has been specifically trained to exploit weaknesses, so there's no room for complacency. Sarah listened from her position at the communication console, noting the confidence in Morrison's voice and the nods of agreement from his team. They were good, probably the best she had worked with, but they were approaching this exercise with assumptions that might prove costly. The intelligence briefing had been sanitized, presenting only the information that command wanted them to have. The real challenges would become apparent only when the operation was underway. The pre-dawn darkness provided perfect cover as the team moved into position. Sarah's role, as everyone understood it, was to remain at the command post and coordinate communications between the field team and mission control. She would monitor their progress, relay intelligence updates, and provide technical support if equipment failures occurred. What the team didn't know was that Sarah's actual capabilities extended far beyond basic communication support. Her training had included advanced electronic warfare, close-quarters combat, and specialized reconnaissance techniques that were classified at levels most of the Delta operators had never heard of. Her small stature and unremarkable appearance had been assets in environments where a larger, more obvious military presence would have meant immediate detection and probable death. As the team began their infiltration, Sarah monitored multiple communication channels simultaneously. The standard radio frequencies carried the expected chatter between team members and mission control, but other channels revealed additional layers of activity that suggested this exercise was more complex than anyone had been told. The opposing force wasn't just following a predetermined script. Their communications indicated real-time tactical adjustments based on the team's movements, suggesting a level of sophistication that went beyond typical training scenarios. Sarah began to suspect that this exercise was being used to evaluate something more than just the Delta team's capabilities. Morrison's voice crackled through the radio as the team reached their first checkpoint. "Overwatch, this is Alpha Team. We're in position for Phase 2. Communications are clear and we're ready to proceed." Sarah acknowledged the transmission while simultaneously tracking several other data streams that painted a more complex picture of the tactical situation. Electronic signatures indicated that the opposing force was using equipment that could monitor and potentially compromise the team's communications. Advanced surveillance systems were tracking their movements with precision that suggested capabilities far beyond what had been briefed. The first phase of the mission proceeded according to plan, with Morrison's team demonstrating the professionalism and skill that had earned them their elite status. They moved through the forest with practiced stealth, avoiding detection by patrols and surveillance systems. Their coordination was flawless, each member anticipating the other's movements and adapting seamlessly to changing conditions. But Sarah could see the trap being set. The opposing force was allowing the team to succeed in the early phases, gathering intelligence on their tactics and capabilities while preparing countermeasures that would be deployed when the stakes were highest. It was a sophisticated strategy that showed respect for the team's abilities while setting the stage for challenges that would test them beyond their expectations. As dawn broke over the training area, Sarah made a decision that would change how everyone viewed her role in the mission. The team was walking into a situation that their briefing had not prepared them for, and their standard communication protocols would not be sufficient to ensure mission success. It was time for her to step out of the shadows and reveal capabilities that had been hidden behind the facade of simple support personnel. The morning light revealed a landscape that looked deceptively peaceful, but Sarah's instruments told a different story. The opposing force had used the night to position assets throughout the area, creating overlapping fields of observation and fire that would challenge even the most skilled operators. The real test was about to begin, and Sarah knew that her team's survival might depend on resources they didn't know they had. The trap sprung with devastating efficiency just as Morrison's team reached the halfway point of their mission. What had seemed like routine patrol patterns suddenly transformed into coordinated ambush positions, and the communication channels Sarah had been monitoring erupted with tactical chatter that revealed the true scope of what they were facing. Contact! Contact! We've got multiple hostiles closing from the north. Sergeant Thompson's voice cut through the radio with the sharp edge of genuine alarm. The simulation rounds might not be lethal, but the pressure was real, and the opposing force was demonstrating capabilities that went far beyond anything in the mission briefing. Sarah watched her screens as the tactical situation deteriorated rapidly. Electronic jamming began interfering with standard communication frequencies, and she could see on her specialized equipment that the opposing force was using signal intelligence to track and predict the team's movements. Morrison and his men were good, but they were fighting with one hand tied behind their backs, limited by protocols and equipment that were proving inadequate for the threat they faced. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch, Sarah transmitted, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around the Delta operators. Be advised, you're dealing with electronic warfare capabilities. Switch to backup frequency 7 and implement communication protocol Delta. There was a brief pause before Morrison's voice came back, tight with concentration as his team maneuvered under fire. Overwatch, we don't have protocol Delta in our briefing package. What are you talking about? Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard, activating systems that had remained dormant throughout her months with the unit. The communication console that everyone thought was standard issue began displaying capabilities that revealed its true nature. Multiple frequency bands opened simultaneously, encrypted channels established themselves automatically, and a three-dimensional tactical display materialized showing the positions of every person in the training area. Uploading to your systems now, Sarah replied, her voice taking on a tone of authority that seemed to come from nowhere. You'll find the new protocols in your tactical computers. Implement immediately. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. The quiet support technician who had spent months in the background was revealing knowledge and capabilities that didn't match her supposed role. Morrison, pinned down behind cover as simulated rounds impacted around his position, didn't have time to question the change. He needed solutions, and Sarah was providing them. The new communication protocol cut through the electronic jamming like a knife through paper. Suddenly, the team's coordination improved dramatically as they could once again communicate clearly with each other and with Sarah's Overwatch position. But, more importantly, the tactical display Sarah had activated was showing them information that changed their understanding of the entire exercise. Jesus, whispered Corporal Davis as he studied the display on his tactical computer. How many of these guys are there? The opposing force was larger and better equipped than anyone had anticipated. What was supposed to be a company-sized unit appeared to be at least battalion strength, with capabilities that included advanced surveillance, electronic warfare, and rapid deployment assets. The exercise had been designed not just to test the Delta team's abilities, but to push them beyond their limits and see how they adapted to overwhelming odds. Sarah made another decision that would further reveal her true capabilities. Alpha Team, stand by for tactical intelligence update. I'm going active with reconnaissance assets. From her position at the command post, Sarah activated equipment that had been hidden in plain sight for months. Devices that looked like standard communication gear revealed themselves to be sophisticated electronic warfare and intelligence gathering systems. Satellite uplinks established themselves automatically, and, within minutes, Sarah had access to real-time intelligence that gave her a comprehensive picture of the entire tactical situation. Morrison's voice came through the radio with a new edge of respect. Overwatch, who the hell are you? This isn't standard support capability. Sarah paused for a moment, knowing that her answer would change everything. Let's just say my qualifications weren't fully represented in the briefing. Right now, you need to focus on the mission. I can get you through this, but you're going to have to trust capabilities you didn't know you had. The tactical display showed that the opposing force was preparing for a final assault that would overwhelm Morrison's position within minutes. Traditional military doctrine would have called for immediate extraction, but Sarah could see options that others would miss. Her training in unconventional warfare provided solutions that existed outside normal operational parameters. Alpha Team, prepare for tactical reposition. I'm going to create a window of opportunity, but you'll need to move fast and trust the intelligence I'm providing. What happened next would have been impossible using standard communication and intelligence assets. Sarah began orchestrating a complex electronic warfare operation from her supposedly simple support position. She identified and exploited vulnerabilities in the opposing forces' communication systems, creating selective jamming that disrupted their coordination while leaving Morrison's team unaffected. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The coordinated assault that had been building against Morrison's position suddenly fragmented as units lost contact with their commanders. Patrol patterns that had been methodically closing the net around the Delta team became confused and disorganized. Sergeant Williams, watching from a nearby technical station, stared at Sarah's equipment with growing amazement. "Martinez, what the hell is that gear? I've never seen anything like it." Sarah didn't look up from her screens as she continued her electronic assault on the opposing force's capabilities. "Some things aren't in the standard equipment manuals, Sergeant. Right now, Alpha Team needs support that goes beyond basic radio communication." Morrison's team took advantage of the confusion Sarah had created, moving through gaps in the opposing forces' coverage that she identified in real time. Her tactical intelligence guided them through terrain that would have been impassable under normal circumstances, using routes that avoided detection and maximized their tactical advantages. But the opposing force was adapting more quickly than expected. Their commanders recognized that they were dealing with capabilities beyond standard operational parameters and began implementing countermeasures that suggested they had trained for this exact scenario. "Overwatch, they're bringing up some kind of signal detection equipment," Thompson reported. "It looks like they're trying to lock onto our position." Sarah's screen showed sophisticated direction-finding equipment being deployed by the opposing force. They had recognized that their communication disruption was coming from a specific location and were attempting to identify and neutralize the source. It was a logical tactical response, but one that revealed the exercise was operating at a level of complexity that exceeded normal training scenarios. "Copy that, Alpha 2. They're trying to triangulate my position. Implementing countermeasures." The quiet technician who had spent months being ignored by her colleagues began demonstrating capabilities that belonged in classified operations rather than training exercises. Her equipment launched a sophisticated deception operation, creating false electronic signatures that confused the opposing force's detection efforts while simultaneously gathering intelligence on their capabilities. Captain Morrison, moving through terrain that Sarah's intelligence had shown was temporarily clear, keyed his radio with a new tone of professional respect. "Overwatch, I don't know what your real background is, but right now I need to know what we're really dealing with. This isn't a standard training exercise, is it?" Sarah's pause was brief but significant. "Negative, Alpha Leader. Based on the capabilities I'm observing, this appears to be an evaluation scenario with parameters beyond what was briefed. The opposing force is using equipment and tactics that suggest this is testing responses to near-peer adversary capabilities." The implications were sobering. Morrison and his team weren't just practicing against a training unit, they were being tested against simulated enemy forces equipped with technology and tactics that represented genuine threats in current global conflicts. The exercise had been designed to evaluate not just their standard capabilities, but their ability to adapt when those capabilities proved insufficient. Davis, monitoring the tactical display Sarah had provided, noticed patterns that revealed the sophistication of their opponents. "These guys aren't just following exercise protocols. They're adapting to everything we do in real time." Sarah's analysis confirmed what the team was beginning to understand. Affirmative. The opposing force appears to have advanced intelligence on standard Delta Force tactics and has prepared specific countermeasures. They're forcing adaptation to new operational parameters. The realization changed the team's approach to the mission. Instead of relying on practiced procedures, they began improvising with the enhanced capabilities Sarah was providing. Her tactical intelligence showed them options that existed outside conventional doctrine, paths through the tactical landscape that required trust in information sources they didn't fully understand. As the morning progressed, the exercise evolved into something more complex than anyone had anticipated. Sarah's electronic warfare capabilities were matched against increasingly sophisticated opposition, creating a technological chess game that played out across multiple spectrums simultaneously. The Delta team found themselves in the middle of a demonstration of capabilities that most of them had never imagined. Morrison's voice carried a new understanding when he next contacted the Overwatch position. "Martinez, when this is over, we need to have a serious conversation about who you really are and what you're really doing here." Sarah's response was quiet but carried an undertone that suggested depths none of them had suspected. "Copy that, Alpha Leader. First priority is mission completion. Everything else is secondary." But, even as she spoke, Sarah knew that the facade she had maintained for months was crumbling. The capability she was demonstrating couldn't be explained by any standard military training, and the equipment she was using existed in classifications that most of the Delta operators had never been cleared to access. The quiet technician was revealing herself to be something far more significant than anyone had imagined. The turning point came when the opposing force made their fatal mistake. Believing they had identified the source of the electronic warfare that was disrupting their operations, they committed a full assault team to neutralize Sarah's position. What they didn't understand was that the quiet technician they were hunting had capabilities that went far beyond anything in their threat assessment. Sarah watched through her surveillance systems as a 12-man team approached her command post with the confidence of professionals who believed they were dealing with standard support personnel. Their movement was precise, their equipment advanced, and their tactics flawless for the threat they thought they were engaging. They had no way of knowing that they were walking into the operational range of someone whose training had been forged in conflicts that officially didn't exist. "Alpha Team, be advised that hostile forces are approaching Overwatch position," Sarah transmitted with a calmness that betrayed none of the tactical calculations running through her mind. "Maintain current position and prepare for significant tactical shift." Morrison's response was immediate and concerned. "Overwatch, do you need extraction? We can adjust route to provide support." Sarah's finger hovered over controls that would reveal the full extent of her capabilities. For months, she had maintained the fiction that she was simply communication support, but the approaching threat required a response that would shatter that illusion permanently. "Negative, Alpha Leader. Maintain mission focus. Overwatch is capable of independent action." The approaching assault team had taken positions surrounding the command post, believing they had trapped their target. Their leader, a seasoned operator whose confidence came from countless successful missions, signaled for the final approach. They expected to find a support technician with basic training and standard equipment. Instead, they were about to encounter someone whose existence was known only to the highest levels of military intelligence. Sarah's transformation was subtle but complete. The loose tactical vest that had concealed her true nature fell away, revealing equipment that belonged in the most classified operations theaters. Her movements changed from the careful efficiency of a technician to the fluid precision of someone whose survival had depended on skills that weren't taught in any standard military school. The first sign that something was wrong came when the assault team's leader tried to breach the command post's perimeter. Electronic countermeasures that shouldn't have existed at a support position began interfering with their equipment. Night vision systems that had functioned perfectly moments before started providing distorted imagery, and communication systems designed to be jamming resistant began experiencing selective interference. "What the hell is going on?" the assault team leader muttered into his radio as his tactical display began showing false information. "This is supposed to be a tech support position." Sarah's response came not through words but through action. The command post that had appeared to be a simple communication station revealed itself to be something far more sophisticated. Hidden weapon systems emerged from concealment, defensive measures activated automatically, and the entire area transformed into a fortress that could have withstood assault by forces many times larger than the team currently approaching. From his position several kilometers away, Morrison watched through his tactical display as Sarah's location suddenly blazed with electronic activity that defied everything he thought he knew about support operations. "Jesus Christ, Martinez, what is that place?" Sarah's voice, when it came through the radio, carried an edge of professional focus that seemed to belong to someone else entirely. Alpha Leader, be advised that Overwatch position is transitioning to active defense mode. Recommend you continue mission while I handle local security. The assault team found themselves facing opposition that was unlike anything in their experience. The support technician they had come to neutralize was demonstrating capabilities that belonged in special operations rather than communication support. Every approach they attempted was anticipated, every tactic they employed was countered, and their advanced equipment was being systematically neutralized by countermeasures they couldn't identify. Sergeant Williams, monitoring the situation from his position at the main command center, stared at his displays in disbelief. "Sir, Martinez isn't showing up as communication support anymore. The system is classifying her as... I don't know what this classification means." The exercise director, Colonel Hansen, had been watching the developing situation with growing interest. He moved to Williams' station and studied the displays that were tracking Sarah's activities. What he saw there caused him to reach for a secure communication device that connected directly to the highest levels of military command. "Get me General Morrison," Hansen said quietly. "Tell him Operation Thunderbolt is active and that Grendel storm cannon has engaged." The name meant nothing to Williams, but it sent a shock wave through the secure communication networks that connected the training exercise to operational command centers around the world. Within minutes, the simple training scenario had attracted attention from intelligence agencies and military commands that dealt with the most classified aspects of national security. Sarah was no longer pretending to be anything other than what she truly was. The assault team that had approached her position was learning firsthand why certain operators were kept classified at levels that most military personnel never encountered. Her defensive operation was a masterclass in capabilities that existed at the intersection of technology and training that represented the cutting edge of military capability. The electronic warfare she launched wasn't just jamming or countermeasures, it was a comprehensive assault on every system the opposing force was using. Communication networks that had seemed secure were penetrated and turned against their users. Surveillance systems began providing false information that led patrols away from their intended routes. Command and control systems that coordinated the entire exercise began experiencing failures that appeared random but followed patterns that systematically degraded the opposing force's capabilities. Morrison's team, still focused on their original mission, found their tactical situation improving dramatically as Sarah's electronic assault disrupted the force's array against them. Routes that had been blocked by surveillance became passable, patrols that had been converging on their position suddenly changed direction, and communication intercepts that had been compromising their operations ceased. "Overwatch, I don't know what you're doing, but it's working," Morrison reported. "Opposition is fragmenting and we're seeing clear routes to the objective." Sarah's response came as she simultaneously coordinated defensive measures against the assault team and electronic warfare against the larger opposing force. "Copy, Alpha Leader. Estimate you have a 30-minute window before opposing force adapts to new parameters. Recommend immediate movement to Phase 3. The assault team leader, realizing that his mission had encountered something far outside normal parameters, made the decision to call for reinforcement. "Control, this is Bravo Leader. Request immediate backup. Target is not communication support. Repeat, target is not communication support." But Sarah's electronic warfare capabilities extended to monitoring and manipulating the opposing force's communications. The call for reinforcement was intercepted, modified, and retransmitted with orders that sent potential backup forces to positions where they would be ineffective. The assault team found themselves isolated and facing an opponent whose capabilities seemed to expand with each passing minute. From concealed positions around the command post, automated defense systems that hadn't been there an hour before began engaging the assault team with precision that forced them into defensive positions. These weren't standard military systems, they were prototype technologies that existed in the gray area between current capabilities and classified research programs. Davis, monitoring the tactical display from his position with Morrison's team, watched in amazement as Sarah's location became the center of electronic activity that was affecting the entire exercise. "Captain, she's not just defending her position. She's running some kind of comprehensive operation against the entire opposing force. Morrison was beginning to understand that the quiet technician who had been part of his team for months was revealing capabilities that placed her in an entirely different category of military professional. "Martinez, after this exercise is complete, I think we need to discuss your actual qualifications and what you're really doing with this unit." Sarah's tactical vest, which had been carefully chosen to conceal her true role, had been discarded to reveal equipment that told a different story entirely. Advanced communication systems that could penetrate any jamming, weapons that fired ammunition designed for specific tactical situations, and defensive gear that represented the latest in personal protection technology. But it was the small badge on her left shoulder that would have explained everything to anyone with sufficient clearance to understand its significance. The badge was simple in design but carried implications that reached to the highest levels of military and intelligence operations. It showed a stylized storm cloud with lightning beneath it, and, below that, in letters so small they required close examination to read, the words "Grendel Storm Cannon." Tech Sergeant Williams, studying surveillance footage of Sarah's position, noticed the badge and immediately ran it through the military database. What came back caused him to reach for the secure phone with hands that were beginning to shake. "Sir," Williams reported to Colonel Hansen, "I've identified the badge on Martinez's vest. It's..." "Sir, I think we need to contact someone much higher up the chain of command." The Grendel Storm Cannon program was so classified that its existence was known only to a handful of people in the entire military structure. It represented the military's most advanced integration of individual operator capabilities with cutting-edge technology, creating personnel who could function as one-person force multipliers in situations where conventional military assets were insufficient or inappropriate. Sarah Martinez wasn't communication support who had been assigned to Morrison's team by accident. She was a weapon system that had been placed there deliberately, waiting for the exact scenario that was now unfolding. The exercise wasn't testing the Delta Force team's capabilities, it was testing her integration with conventional forces and evaluating how her unique abilities could enhance standard military operations. As the assault team continued their increasingly futile attempts to neutralize her position, Sarah was demonstrating why the Grendel Storm Cannon program represented the future of military operations. She was fighting a battle on multiple levels simultaneously, using capabilities that individual operators couldn't match while coordinating with Morrison's team in ways that enhanced their effectiveness beyond normal parameters. The storm that had been hidden beneath the facade of quiet support was finally unleashed, and its impact was reshaping everything about the exercise and everyone's understanding of what they thought they knew about their quiet teammate. The final phase of the exercise unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of destruction. Sarah Martinez, no longer hiding behind the facade of simple communication support, demonstrated why the Grendel Storm Cannon program represented the pinnacle of military innovation. The assault team that had approached her position with confidence was now scattered and demoralized, their advanced equipment neutralized by countermeasures they couldn't understand, their communications compromised, and their tactical options systematically eliminated. Colonel Hansen stood in the main command center, surrounded by displays that showed the complete transformation of what had begun as a standard training exercise. Intelligence analysts from agencies that most military personnel never knew existed were arriving by secure transport, drawn by the activation of protocols that were triggered only when the most classified military assets were deployed. "Sir," Tech Sergeant Williams reported, his voice tight with the stress of handling information far above his clearance level, "General Morrison is on Secure Line 1. He's asking for immediate status on Operation Thunderbolt." Hansen picked up the phone, knowing that he was about to participate in a conversation that would be classified for decades. "General, this is Colonel Hansen. Grendel Storm Cannon is active and demonstrating full operational capability. The integration with conventional forces appears to be exceeding all projected parameters." General Morrison's voice carried the weight of someone who understood the true significance of what was happening. "Colonel, you are now operating under National Security Authority 7. Everything you observe is classified at the highest levels. Document everything, but ensure that only personnel with appropriate clearance have access to information regarding the Grendel asset." On the tactical display, Morrison's Delta Force team was approaching their final objective with support from Sarah that represented capabilities no conventional force had ever possessed. Her electronic warfare operation had created a corridor through enemy defenses that existed not just in physical space but across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Communication intercepts provided real-time intelligence on enemy positions and intentions, while selective jamming kept opposing forces confused and uncoordinated. Morrison himself was experiencing combat support unlike anything in his considerable experience. The tactical intelligence Sarah was providing was so comprehensive and accurate that it felt like having a crystal ball that showed the future of the battlefield. Every enemy position was known, every patrol route was mapped, and every tactical option was analyzed and presented in real time. Alpha Leader, this is Overwatch. Sarah's voice came through the radio with the calm professionalism of someone managing multiple complex operations simultaneously. Final objective is clear for approach. Opposition command structure has been neutralized through electronic warfare. You have a clean run to mission completion. But Morrison was no longer thinking about the training exercise. The capabilities he was witnessing raised questions about military operations that went far beyond anything he had been cleared to know. Martinez, I need to understand what we're really dealing with here. This level of capability doesn't exist in any program I'm familiar with. Sarah's response came as she monitored the final elements of the assault team that had attempted to neutralize her position. They were withdrawing in disorder, their equipment compromised, and their mission failed. Alpha Leader, recommend we focus on mission completion. Full debriefing will be conducted by appropriate authorities after exercise termination. The badge on Sarah's vest had become visible to the surveillance systems monitoring her position, and its identification had triggered a cascade of security protocols that reached to the highest levels of government. The Grendel Storm Cannon program wasn't just military, it was a joint operation between military special operations, intelligence agencies, and research organizations that were developing the future of warfare. Davis, watching the tactical display as Morrison's team approached their final objective, noticed patterns in the opposition's behavior that revealed the sophistication of Sarah's operation. Captain, the enemy isn't just confused. They're being actively manipulated. Someone is feeding them information that's making them move exactly where we need them to go. Sarah's electronic warfare capabilities extended far beyond simple jamming or countermeasures. She was conducting a comprehensive information operation that turned the opposing force's own communication and control systems against them. Orders were intercepted, modified, and retransmitted in ways that appeared authentic but served her tactical purposes. Intelligence reports were altered to provide false pictures of the battlefield situation. Command decisions were influenced by information that seemed legitimate but was crafted to produce specific responses. The assault team that had been sent to neutralize her was discovering firsthand why certain military assets were classified at levels that most personnel never encountered. Sarah's defensive capabilities weren't just advanced, they represented a fundamental transformation in how individual operators could influence large-scale tactical situations. She was functioning as a one-person electronic warfare unit, intelligence center, and tactical coordination facility simultaneously. Morrison's team completed their mission with an efficiency that amazed even veteran observers. The hostages were located and secured, the opposing force was neutralized, and the extraction was conducted without casualties. But everyone involved understood that the success wasn't just due to their skills, it was the result of support capabilities that redefined what was possible in military operations. Exercise complete, Morrison reported as his team reached the extraction point. All objectives achieved with zero casualties and minimal resource expenditure. Colonel Hansen watched the final statistics appear on his displays and realized he was looking at performance metrics that exceeded every projection for conventional military operations. The Delta Force team had achieved mission success against overwhelming odds, but only because they had been supported by capabilities that existed in the most classified reaches of military research. Sarah's position was secured by teams whose arrival had been coordinated through channels that bypassed normal military command structures. The equipment she had used was collected by specialists who handled materials that officially didn't exist. The command post that had appeared to be a simple communication station was revealed to be a mobile platform for technologies that represented years of classified research and development. As the exercise participants gathered for debriefing, it became clear that most of them would never know the full truth of what they had witnessed. Standard personnel would be briefed on a version of events that emphasized the importance of adaptability and advanced technology without revealing the existence of programs like Grendel storm cannon. But Morrison and his senior team members were escorted to a separate facility where they met with intelligence officials whose presence indicated the true significance of what had occurred. The quiet technician who had been part of their unit for months was revealed to be something far more important than anyone had imagined. "Gentlemen," began the intelligence official who conducted their debriefing, "what you witnessed today was a demonstration of capabilities that represent the future of military operations. The individual you knew as Sarah Martinez is part of a program that combines advanced technology with specialized training to create force multipliers that can function independently or in support of conventional units." Morrison studied classified documents that explained the Grendel storm cannon program and realized that his unit had been selected not just for their skills, but for their ability to integrate with assets that existed outside normal military structures. "How many of these operators exist?" The intelligence official's smile was carefully neutral. "That information is classified above your current level. What you need to understand is that the capabilities you witnessed today are available for deployment in operational situations where conventional forces alone would be insufficient." The badge that Sarah wore had become the symbol of capabilities that represented a transformation in military operations. The storm cloud with lightning represented power that could be unleashed anywhere in the world, while the designation Grendel storm cannon indicated precision and control that could be applied to any tactical situation. Tech Sergeant Williams, still processing equipment that he was learning had capabilities far beyond anything in the standard inventory, found himself wondering how many other seemingly routine military assets were actually something much more significant. "Sir, does this mean that other support personnel might actually be?" Colonel Hansen's response was immediate and firm. "Sergeant, you will forget any speculation about other personnel or programs. What you witnessed today is classified at levels that could result in imprisonment if disclosed inappropriately. Your job is to document what occurred, not to speculate about what else might exist." Sarah Martinez herself had disappeared into the same classified networks that had produced her, leaving behind only questions and the knowledge that the quiet support technician had been something extraordinary. Her integration with Morrison's team had been so complete that none of them had suspected her true nature until the moment when circumstances required her to reveal capabilities that existed in the most advanced reaches of military technology. The exercise that had begun as a test of Delta Force capabilities had become a demonstration of what was possible when conventional military excellence was combined with assets that existed beyond normal operational parameters. The storm that had been hidden beneath the facade of routine support had been unleashed, and its impact would influence military operations for years to come. Morrison, reviewing classified after-action reports that would never appear in standard military files, understood that he had been part of something that represented the future of warfare. The badge that Sarah had worn wasn't just an identification marker, it was a symbol of capabilities that could reshape any conflict where they were deployed. The Grendel storm cannon program remained classified, its operators hidden within the normal structure of military operations, waiting for the moments when their unique capabilities would be required. And, somewhere in that network, Sarah Martinez had returned to the shadows, ready to emerge when the storm was needed once again.